Hello and welcome to part 3 of Building a Better Brand, Your Visual Identity. I'm super excited about this section of the course because it's definitely what I do most of on a day-to-day basis. Now, here's what most people think of when they think about branding. They're actually thinking of your visual identity. This is what includes your logo, your color palette, your fonts, and all of that stuff. Now, I love branding, but crafting visual identity is what I really love to do. So I'm crazy excited to share a few basics for you to help get the ball rolling. Now, your main goal with any visual identity is to create consistency. We discussed this a bit in our last section. You want your brand to feel like a familiar friend, like the same person we met last time we encountered you. Too much change can create mistrust in your audience, and we definitely don't want that. So here are the main ways I've found to use your visual identity to create consistency. First, use your fonts and use the same ones. Using the same typefaces in every context helps create consistency and also helps your brand recognition. Here's a little help. When determining your fonts, you should consider this. At the most, you need 2 different typefaces and 3 different styles, max. Take a look at this presentation, for example. I use a big bold font for my headers, or my most important information, and then I use the same bold font, just a bit smaller, for my subheader, or my secondary information. And finally, I use the regular style of the same font for my body text, all using one font. Or here's another style with 2 fonts paired together. My header is a big, bold serif. My subheader is an all-caps sans serif font, which means it doesn't have those little tails on the end. And my body font is the same one as my header, just smaller. So you should never use more than 2 fonts. I know it's super easy to get attached to a bunch of beautiful different fonts. Believe me, I make them. But trust me on this, more than 2 in your overall visual identity is just a bad idea. It causes way too much inconsistency, which is the opposite of what we're going for here, right? Next, we can use our color palette to create consistency. Until your brand is extremely recognizable like Nike or Apple, who really still stick primarily to black and white for their logos, it's super important to use color to your benefit. And you use this to help your site, print, and other assets become more easily identifiable. Here are a few tips to help you figure out your ideal color palette. So I typically go for 3 to 5 colors max. Any more and your visual identity can get pretty muddy. And I suggest you use your colors kind of like your fonts. Have a primary accent color for your most important information, like buttons, calls to action, etc. Have another secondary color for secondary information, like color accents on your site, and a third color for things like your body text or other more common contexts. Next, your color palette should be cohesive. Without getting too deep into color theory, I tend to lean toward palettes that include colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, side by side, and colors that are opposites or near opposites on the color wheel, so directly across the entire thing. Let's look at my website palette, for example. I have 3 different types of this peachy orange color. One is darker and less saturated, one is more saturated, and the other is light and bright. Now, to create contrast, I've included this cool greenish blue, which is exactly opposite that peach color on the color wheel. And it turns out they complement each other pretty nice. So if you're stuck, I suggest you go and look for inspiration somewhere else. I love sites like Color Lovers, Pinterest, or you can even use photos of natural elements to inspire your palette. Finally, use your images to create visual consistency in your brand. Now, every single image you use should evoke similar feelings in your audience. For example, if your brand is light and bright and you want your audience to feel uplifted or inspired every time they encounter you, you should stray away from darker, moodier images. Or if your brand is more like Under Armour, Using those darker, high contrast, moody images can help your audience feel motivated and ready for action. So your images really do matter. So when selecting your imagery, it's really important to keep your brand in mind. Your images should be reflective of your brand, so make sure you're using images that evoke the right feelings in your audience. Next, you want to keep your colors in mind. One of the best ways to make your social media feeds, website, and overall visual identity consistent and unified is to use the same color palette in your photographs. Is black a main color in your palette, for example? Make sure all of your images have heavy blacks in them then, and that'll help unify your entire visual identity. And if you're still struggling, find inspiration somewhere else. I love searching through mood boards on Pinterest to help gather inspiration for my Instagram feed and my site. So use these resources to your benefit and go get inspired. So, do you want to learn more about design and visual identity? Don't worry, I'm really not interested in wasting your time. There's nothing more frustrating than an irrelevant pitch at the end of a free course. I get it. So if you're all set on the design side of your business, you have an amazing on-staff designer, or maybe you're a great designer yourself, just ignore me here. But for those of you who loved every part of that last section and you want to learn more about design, or maybe those of you who know nothing about design but desperately need a solution for your small business, listen up. Creative freedom. We all want it. If you've been running a business, you know how frustrating it can be to depend on an outsourced design work for your social media, advertising, branding, and more. You envision exactly how you want your logo and your design to look, but you haven't met a designer who can create exactly what you're picturing. Or maybe you don't have the budget to hire a fantastic designer who can make your vision a reality. Yeah, I've been there before. And now I design all of my own material to look exactly how I want. And you know what that feels like? Creative freedom. And this could be your story too. Imagine what it would be like if you could create social media graphics just on demand, or you could make product mock-ups and advertising on a whim. What if you stopped having to wait days for revisions to come back from another designer, and you finally felt control of your visual identity and your graphics? Heck yes. That sounds amazing. You can go from feeling like design is a completely different language to doing it all yourself. Now, you might be thinking, hey, my Instagram feed or my website or my visual identity is good enough. It's working for me. I'm getting business, so there must not be anything wrong with the design of it, right? But here are a few reasons why I believe anyone with an online presence should know design and know it well. First, your audience cares, and so should you. Whether they realize it or not, your audience cares about great design. It's why people with beautiful Instagram feeds have more followers, why Apple sells so many dang phones, and why everyone congregates in the prettiest rooms in your home. Great design creates order, it creates consistency, and it aids understanding. And you want your brand to give your customer that experience. Like when I redesigned my font graphics, I watched my business increase by nearly 30% just because it helped create a more unified experience for my customer. Design matters. Second, you regain control over your content and your budget. Have you ever had a product release strategy that got completely delayed because of a miscommunication between you and your designer? That's frustrating. Or have you designed something yourself that is totally off-brand because you didn't have the budget to ask your designer for something small? Also frustrating. But no more. Learning to properly design means creating on-brand content in time for all of your deadlines and within your budget. Third, you don't have time to wait. Being an entrepreneur means your time is more valuable than anything. And there are few things more frustrating than spending time waiting for revisions instead of launching a new product, which should be your priority. So don't wait. Just do it yourself. So what exactly am I going to be learning here? This course is meant to teach you how to design like a designer, the tools, the tricks, and the techniques I use every day as a designer. So we'll be going through 4 different modules. First will be your friendly introduction to design, Photoshop, and Illustrator. We'll go in depth into design essentials, and we'll learn the super basics of how to use programs like Photoshop and Illustrator, so even beginners know where to start. After that, we'll dive into intermediate design techniques in these programs with projects like collage, logo design, social media templates, and so much more to help solidify those concepts. Then, we'll go into the more advanced techniques, creating editable mock-ups, t-shirt designs, how to format those designs for a screen printer, creating your own textures, your own watercolor elements, basically all the stuff you can buy on Creative Market, you can learn how to make yourself, which is pretty awesome. And then finally, for those of you who loved the course enough to maybe want to do this for a living, or even sell some of those things you made on Creative Market or another similar platform, we'll talk through the business basics on how to get you started. So what if you don't learn anything? I totally understand that fear. But here's the thing. I believe learning should be risk-free, which is why we have a 30-day guarantee. If you get through the whole course in 30 days and feel like you didn't learn enough about design to help you where you're at, I'll give you a full refund. But I'm more than confident that you're going to be super stoked on all the new techniques and methods you'll learn here. So, with that in mind, I want to give you guys a special deal for making it this far into building a better brand. So if you're super stoked on this design masterclass and you definitely want to take it, you can pre-register now for only $79. Now, this is for you only. People who register through my actual site will pay full price, $99, but you can save a good chunk of change just by signing up through here, and kind of as a way for me to say thank you for getting this far into the course. But this doesn't last forever. After the course launches on October 13th, the price will jump back up to $99. So sign up now. To register, follow the link in the Design Masterclass section above, or follow the link at the end of this video. Thank you all so much for joining me for building a better brand. I hope you learned tons, and I would love to see you all in Design Masterclass in October. I'll see you there.